Roman Catholics in the United States and around the world are waking up this morning to the very sad news announced by officials in Vatican City. The Vicar of Rome, Pope Francis, has passed away at age 88. We've got some details on what's going on, and we'll share them with you here in just 1 second. During the very wee hours of the morning, on Monday, April 21st, 2025, bells tolled out all across Rome, then across Italy, then Europe, and around the world, announcing the passing of the leader of the Roman Catholic Church, Pope Francis. We've got an article here by the Associated Press, and then we're going to take a look at what comes next. So with that, we go to the pages of the AP. Headline: Pope Francis, the first Latin American pontiff who ministered with a charming, humble style, dies at age 88. Article written by Nicole Winfield. We have the following. Dateline: Vatican City. Pope Francis, history's first Latin American pontiff who charmed the world with his humble style and concern for the poor, but alienated conservatives with his critiques of capitalism and climate change, died Monday. He was 88. Bells tolled in church towers across Rome after the announcement, which was read out by Cardinal Kevin Farrell, the Vatican Carmelengo, from the chapel of Doma Santa Marta, where Francis lived. Quote, at 7:35 this morning, which would be 1:35 Eastern, the Bishop of Rome, Francis, returned to the home of the Father. His entire life was dedicated to the service of the Lord and of his church, Farrell said. Francis, who had suffered from chronic lung disease and had part of one lung removed as a young man, was admitted to Gemelli Hospital on February 14, 2025, for a respiratory crisis that developed into double pneumonia. He spent 38 days there, the longest hospitalization of his 12-year papacy. But he emerged on Easter Sunday, his last public appearance, a day before his death, to bless thousands of people in St. Peter's Square and treat them to a surprise Pope-mobile romp through the piazza, drawing wild cheers and applause. Beforehand, he met briefly with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. Francis performed the blessing of the same loggia where he was introduced to the world on March 13, 2013, as the 266th Pope. From his first greeting that night, a remarkably normal buonasera, good evening, to his embrace of refugees and the downtrodden, Francis signaled a very different tone for the papacy, stressing humility over hubris for a Catholic Church beset by scandal and accusations of indifference. After that rainy night, the Argentine-born George Mario Bergoglio brought a breath of fresh air into a 2,000-year-old institution that had been seen its influence wane during the troubled tenure of Pope Benedict XVI, whose surprise resignation led to Francis's election. But Francis soon invited troubles of his own, and conservatives grew increasingly upset with his progressive bent, outreach to the LGBTQ plus Catholics, and cracked down on traditionalists. His greatest test came in 2018 when he botched a notorious case of clergy sexual abuse in Chile, and the scandal that festered under his predecessors erupted anew on his watch. And then Francis, the crowd-loving, globe-trotting Pope of the peripheries, navigated the unprecedented reality of leading a universal religion through the coronavirus pandemic from a locked-down Vatican City. He implored the world to use COVID-19 as an opportunity to rethink the economic and political framework that he said had turned rich against the poor. Quote, we have realized that we are on the same boat, all of us fragile and disoriented, Francis told an empty St. Peter's Square in March 2020. But he also stressed the pandemic showed the need for, quote, all of us to row together, each of us in need of comforting the other. At Vatican on Monday, the mood was a mix of somber quiet among people who knew and worked for Francis and the typical buzz of tourists visiting St. Peter's Square on the day after Easter. While many initially did not know the news, some sensed something was happening given the swarm of television crews. The Vatican spokesman, Matteo Bruni, wiped tears from his eyes as he met with journalists in the press room. The death now sets off a week-long process, allowing the faithful to pay their final respects. First, for Vatican officials in the Santa Marta Chapel, and then in St. Peter's for the general public, followed by a funeral and a conclave to elect a new pope. Now, as far as a bit more detail about what that means or the steps from here, I've got part of an article from Newsweek, and I'd like to go ahead and read it for you all. What happens next? A papal conclave typically begins between 15 to 20 days after a pope's death. That allows for the funeral rites, a 9-day mourning period known as the Novem Diales, and periods provides time for cardinals worldwide to travel to Vatican City. The outcome will remain uncertain until a pope is chosen behind the closed doors of the Sistine Chapel, and ideological factions within the church will weigh their options between continuity and a more conservative shift. The next pope will inherit a church at a crossroads, one grappling with declining influence in Europe and North America, growth in the global south, and ongoing internal debates about its future. I think the Associated Press article is very accurate and complete in its description of Pope Francis's papacy. He came in to reviews, very high remarks and high regard, but quickly drew the ire of more conservative elements inside the church, which now sets up a very interesting process. After the period of mourning, which is timely and appropriate, there will be a conclave. And I think Newsweek is correct in their analysis. This is going to be a fight between the conservative elements of the church, such as they are, that still remain, conservative theologically, let me put that point out there, and the elements, the more progressive elements that Pope Francis introduced into the cardinalship. So, where does it go from here? Hard to say. Time will tell, and it will all play itself out. But for right now, the Catholic world mourns the loss of their spiritual leader. But that's what I've got to say about it. What do you think? As we start to wrap up this video, please do me some favors as always. Number one, if you're not a subscriber to this channel, please do so. Number two, please hit the bell for notifications. I want to make sure you're always aware when new material is coming out, be it a video like this one or a live stream. Number three, please share the link around. I genuinely appreciate all the help I can get. And finally, please leave a thumbs up and a comment on this video. It really does help with pushing out the reach of this channel to other people who may not be aware of what we do here. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your Front Porch Conservative, and I will see you next time.